So
Good afternoon.
all right, good afternoon, Ms. Scott. We have 20 minutes for your interview. You can do opening or closing, 1 or 2 minutes, whatever you would prefer.
I'd prefer closing.
All right, and we'll go ahead and begin with your investigating member, who is Mr. O'Brien.
Hey, good to meet you. It's a real pleasure to do your background. We practiced right next door for 5 years. I'm in the Richards building, and you were right next door, but I don't think we ever met. But it was a pleasure to do your background. A lot of people said great things about you. Many were very excited that you applied and put you right at the very top of their list. You had a great application. I appreciate it. It was easy to read, well put together. The attachments were well done. I also heard you have a lot of good experience litigation-wise, and most people think you could transfer all of that knowledge into being a county court judge, even though I see you've only got limited jury trial experience. So let me ask you, though, this is your first application, correct?
That is correct.
Did you read the Florida Code of Judicial Conduct?
If you're referring to the judicial canons, yes, I reviewed the canons prior to today.
Well, I didn't know that because you didn't sign the part of the application that says you read it. Did you skip over that, or was that just an oversight, or what happened there?
It must have been an oversight.
Okay. Let me ask you this question. You've practiced quite a bit in doing landlord-tenant, right? Even at county court level. Let me ask you about your prior mishaps. Your application, you were honest about you had some bad financial decisions in your youth. You say you don't do that anymore, you're over it. But let me ask you about some of those experiences and how it might affect you if you're a county court judge. So, let's say there's a landlord-tenant residential issue, and the landlord has not fixed the air conditioner, and the guy's a total jerk, and there's a trial in front of Judge Scott, and it's clear the landlord's terrible. The place is habitable, but it's hot. It's always hot here, right? And you know from other cases that landlords got problems, but in this particular case, the pro se tenant did not deposit rent into the court registry, and the landlord's attorney seeks dismissal, and you think the law requires that. Do you have any trouble doing that? And if you do, how do you explain that to a pro se litigant?
So, very good question. I think that the most important thing is that the law is followed. So when someone comes before the court, if they're pro se, I think it's really important that you not only make your ruling, but also explain the reason why you're making your ruling. So if I was presented with that situation, I would, maybe feel sympathetic for the tenant, surely. But I would follow the law, and I would explain to the pro se litigant the reason for my ruling as a way to both educate as well as do my job as a county court judge, which is applying the law to the facts.
Let's take a very similar case. Again, you've got the landlord with a lawyer and a pro se tenant. How do you treat that pro se litigant in your courtroom? How do you handle a pro se litigant in that situation?
I think that it's a combination of things. I think what's most important is first to listen, right? To give them an opportunity to be heard. But also it's important to, educate as well. And I think that it's difficult to do that as a county court judge, because I know that there's a backlog of cases and there's other people waiting to have their opportunity to be heard as well. So I think that it's a delicate balance, but I would certainly listen, educate, and then of course apply the law to the facts.
What about with rules of evidence and procedure? How do you? What about pro se litigants versus an attorney in that regard?
I think, and I've seen on the bench some county court does give a little bit of leniency, but I think that we have to apply the law. If something is not admissible, I think that you explain to the pro se litigant, this is not admissible for X number of reasons. But as a county court judge, I think that we have the responsibility to the community to exercise public service. And that means that regardless of whether something is very sensitive or whether you feel sympathetic, I think that you have to apply the law and the rules of evidence.
Lastly, I know you've changed your ways since, but in this Auto King Finances case, you said you did not satisfy the judgment because I didn't have the income. So that judgment went unpaid, is that right?
That is correct. And in accordance with following the law, there is a statute of limitations that came to existence. And so under the law, I believe that I have that defense.
All right, thank you so much, and I appreciate your application.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to see you here. I have a question about your application in number 61 pertaining to tax returns. I noticed that you had indicated you had not filed your tax return for the year 2019. Is there a reason? For that? Did you obtain an extension?
So originally I did obtain an extension, and I have since filed the 2019 return as well. I don't really have a good excuse, if you will. I've just been, really busy with practicing, as well as recently pregnant, recently gave birth, and that sort of thing. But nevertheless, I don't think that there's a proper excuse. And so I think that it's always important, and I would expect even people appearing before me in court to always be honest. And so in my application, I wanted to be honest about that current situation.
You'd also said there may have been other situations where you had to pay either late penalties or underpayment penalties. Do you know approximately how many times that has happened?
No, but I wanted to be honest in that a late penalty might be something that someone pays whenever they file their taxes late, and I don't have an exact recollection of having to pay that. But because I didn't know, I didn't want to say no. I've never had to pay a late fee. I wanted to be honest in my answer, and so that's the way I answered. That's the reason I answered in that way. I will say at current, I do not owe any taxes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
So the letters of references are very positive. However, probably the most enlightening discussion I had was a phone call with Andrea Frazier at the county attorney's office, and she explained to me your role in representing Lee County in the VR Labs saga. And specifically, there was from what I could glean, the county was sued under the public records law. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And you were working for Humphrey Knott at the time,
Yes, I was.
and you were given that assignment to defend the county.
Not heavily.
Yes,
I'm sorry. Boy, I'm sorry.
Right. Yes, the proper name is not Evelyn.
Not
Carr, but
Evelyn, yes.
It is known as
I have the
Humphrey and
letter
not
right
previously.
But anyway, explain that experience. And apparently, you received a judgment in favor of the county. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So what was that about?
So essentially, because Lee County is obviously a governmental entity, governmental entities are required to produce certain public records when they are requested. From what I can recall, because it's been a couple of years, but from what I can recall, the specific thing that I worked on was there was a request for public records. Lee County asked for additional time to produce the records, which is statutorily proper if they cannot produce the records immediately. And also Lee County required a certain fee to be paid prior to producing the records, which is also in accordance with the public records law. And so the question was, or the issue was, whether Lee County was acting reasonably in their request. And so I remember doing research, making sure that the law as it relates to the public records statute was applied. And I remember that we did get judgment in our favor. I don't remember much more than that because it's been a couple of years, but I will tell you that in my experience, I have represented governmental entities, Lee County and others, as well as, kind of like the landlord tenants of the world and things of that sort. And so I believe that I have a variety of experience that would be appropriate for the county court bench.
And you currently sit on a grievance committee here in the Triad?
That is correct.
Have you adjudicated any grievances as a member of the committee? And how would that inform your ability to sit in judgment on high in county court?
So we have adjudicated some decisions. I did not play a huge role in those. Currently, I am investigating a matter for the grievance committee. As far as how that would play a role, I think that it would play a role in a couple of ways. First of all, by practicing law in Lee County, I think that obviously I have experience as an attorney. By not having a perfect background, I don't think anyone does. I think that makes me empathetic to the attorneys that might appear before me. But it also it has given me practice in applying rules and applying law to facts, and so that is exactly what I intend on doing. I think that attorneys have a very important role in protecting the community. I think that it's important that attorneys have high ethics, values, that they're honest even when it's embarrassing or it's something you may not want to admit. And I think that that all of that would help in my experience on the bench.
Very much.
Thank you.
Yes, it looks like from your experience handling small claims, landlord tenant, HOA claims, those are some of the areas that a county court judge would. How often do you get to county court?
A lot of my cases are in county court. I don't know the exact number at this moment, but I'm in front of county court judges regularly. I've appeared before. I think maybe all of the county court judges at some point, at least the ones that handle the types of cases that I handle.
People speak very highly of you. And George and I, I've known you over a long time. That's true. You're very young. You're practicing less than 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us why you have the experience and she chose you.
That's a very good question. Thank you. As it relates to my experience, you're right. I've only been practicing going on 8 years, and I think that out of all of the applicants, I might have the least amount of experience in practicing law. However, I think that I have used my time in the legal field very, very wisely. Not only did I come to the legal field having this be my second career, but I also have used my knowledge that I've obtained to educate others. I teach at Florida Gulf Coast University. I teach business law. I've been doing that since 2018. I've had the opportunity to work for a big law firm, a boutique law firm, and also to own my own practice. I've taken the opportunity to get involved in numerous organizations with other lawyers, from the Colusa Inns of Court to the Lee County Association for Women Lawyers. I have obtained a AV rated rating with Martindale Hubbell. I have been listed as a rising star. I have worked tirelessly while being a mother and while being a wife. And so I think that the practice of law and the years of experience, certainly years of experience is important, but it's what you do with that time. And so I think that if you were to look at all the experiences that I've had over this last 8 years, I think that it would possibly surpass what other people have done with more time.
Just one quick one, and if you have a quick answer. What experience do you have with criminal law other than the year that you spent in the PD office in North Carolina?
That would essentially be all of the experience I have with criminal law. However, with the cases that I even deal with at this point, I have to do research and get up to speed on the different issues, and I would do the same thing if I, in handling criminal matters.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We had a conversation in January of 2020 when you told me you were leaving Mount Evelyn Park to go start your own practice. You didn't mention any judicial aspirations at that point in time. So when did this develop, and it come to you that this was something that you wanted to do and at this point in time?
I think that I've always had the idea in the back of my head that one day I may want to join the bench. But to be honest with you, when I saw that Judge Adams was leaving and I was contacted by members of the judiciary to say, Christy, you might want to think about putting in an application, that was the first time that I seriously thought about it. I seriously said, you know what, maybe I should. Maybe this is a good move. And I thought about the my character, I thought about my demeanor, I thought about my experience, and I thought about how that would be an asset to the bench. And so while, like a 1L in law school, I thought, oh yeah, like, whenever you meet judges, like possibly that would be a good fit. I never seriously considered it until members of the court contacted me and asked me to apply. And because I have such a high respect for Judge Adams, I thought that it was appropriate. And I do think that it would be a great way for me to serve the community. And I think that that even though it hasn't been what I thought about since I was 5 years old, I think that my experience has prepared me. And I think that it would be a great way to serve the community. And you all have seen my application. You know that I'm passionate about public service, and this will be the ultimate way to serve.
Were those the judicial references that are in your application?
Well, some of which, but what I'm referring to would be, the 5 years I served as a guardian ad litem, the
No,
7.
I'm sorry, I may wasn't clear.
Okay.
You have 2 judicial references in your application. Are those the county court judges right now that you think that you would emulate most, or who you would style your practice after, or how are those the references that you have?
While I have a lot of respect for members of the judiciary, including those that I listed as references, I would not aspire to style my demeanor after anyone. I would stand on my own, if you will. I know how to read the law. I know how to apply the law, and I wouldn't aspire to be similar to any particular person, while certainly having respect for them.
And Christine, Scott, just in full disclosure, you were at Becker Polycop for a couple of years, right?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
But I don't think, unless my memory fails me, we didn't work together because you worked for Mr. Witt.
That's correct.
In your application, you have here that you had tried 2 jury trials. Were those with you as lead counsel, or were you co-counsel in those cases?
Actually, both of those experiences were as internships. The reason I answered that question in the way that I did was because it says in all of your life or something to that effect.
In your lifetime?
Yeah, in your lifetime. And so as an intern at the Federal Defender's Office in North Carolina, where I'm from, I helped with the jury trial. I would say maybe second chair as an intern. And then also while I was interning at the law office of Harold Cogdell, I was second chair as an intern for a jury trial on a rape case.
And then the arbitration, did you have 2 arbitrations? Were you lead counsel on either of those?
Yes, I've been lead counsel on arbitrations. That was, one of them was while I was with Nada Bellini Hart, and I was the sole attorney representing in an arbitration. And actually, as I'm talking this out, both of them were while I was with Nada Bellini Hart.
Were you lead counsel on both of those?
One as co-counsel with George Knott, and the other as lead counsel.
And the other case that you referenced there, is that the one where you did the brief with Mr. Knott?
Right, and along with another attorney at our office.
Those are all the questions I have. I know we're short on time, so thank you.
1 minute or less.
1 minute or less.
Student loans, $278,898. How much did you pay this last year on paying back student loans?
I don't know right offhand.
An idea? 1,000, 2,000?
I would say, if I had to guess, at least $5,000 to $6,000, if not more.
So are you planning on paying the student loan off this lifetime?
Absolutely, I am.
When?
I don't have an exact date for you, but I am planning on paying
5
out.
years, 10 years?
Yeah, within 5 or 10 years, absolutely.
So,
Right?
I have no questions.
Okay, you set some time for a closing, so you have a couple minutes for a closing.
Thank you. So what I would like you all to consider is actually my diversity of experience. While I may not have, 10, 15, or 20 years of experience, I think I would bring a diversity of experience to the county court bench. That would be everything from, the fact that I'm a woman, the fact that I'm a woman of color, would be a part of that diversity. But that's not it. It would be the diversity of experience being that I practiced law and had a career prior to that. It would be the experience that I have with serving the community, being a community service advocate, both as a mentor to young people, as well as a teacher of business law for the past couple of years, and as well as, the mistakes that I've made in my past. I think that when you look at the overall diversity of experience, I would be a great candidate as a county court judge. In addition, I would like you to give some credit to the amount of cases that I have had that are coming before the county court bench. So the landlord-tenant experience, the experience with small claims matters, the experience with condo and HOA matters. I think that all of that would be an asset. And with the areas of the law that I'm not as familiar with, like if I ever had a family law issue or criminal law, I believe that with my experience and education, I'm competent to research the law, that I would be a great county court judge, because I would not be swayed by, what other people have done or by any other motives. I would literally just look at the law and apply the law to the facts. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The cell number we have in the application is a good number to reach.
That is